Welcome to the Mothering with Jesus podcast, where we are real and raw about the ups and downs of motherhood and where we rally together to become the mothers that God intended us to be. I'm your host, Lena Massey, and this week's guest is Kaylee Hirai. This is such an awesome conversation about being a working mom while also being a Latter-day Saint and how these two can jive together. Kaylee shares with us her story, and I think it will be really helpful for any of us who have little side gigs, who are working full-time, part-time, whatever you're doing. Then this is a great conversation to have. I've got a couple of really awesome solo casts coming up for you. So after you listen today, be sure to tune in for the next ones. We're going to be chatting about let virtue garnish your thoughts unceasingly, what this actually means, and we're going to talk about not letting Satan steal your joy in motherhood. So these are two topics that I'm really excited to chat. If you've been around here for a minute, you know how much I love my Oliveda skincare. This is a clean, waterless beauty company that has been in Europe for 20 years and now sells in the United States. I absolutely love it. It has changed my skin drastically. It has helped fine lines and wrinkles to go away. It has helped my hydration dramatically. I used to have really flaky skin, and obviously my skin is not perfect. There's no product that's going to make you be perfect, ladies, okay? But I do believe in investing in high quality skincare, and I absolutely love this product. If you have any questions about what routine you should be using, then reach out to me and you can shop with me in the link in the description. Well, welcome, Kaylee. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us. So you live in Washington, is that correct?
Yes.
Love it. Which part are you in?
We are in central Washington, so not the green side of the state. It is
Okay.
very dry farmland here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it doesn't rain a lot where you're at.
not a lot. Yeah.
Okay,
When
interesting.
it rains, it's like, "Oh, yay, sweater weather."
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I know very little about Washington, so I didn't even
hmm
know this side of Washington existed.
Yeah. Yeah, so we really are, I think, in the center of the state. We've got Seattle on one side, and then there's Spokane on the east side, and like Oregon right below. We are literally the small town in the center of the state. You don't need to come here unless you're coming here.
I love it. That's a great description. Tell us how many kids you have.
We have 3 kids and counting. We would like 6.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. What are their ages?
Our oldest is 4. She turns 5 in July, and then we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Cute. Fun ages.
Yes.
And yeah, let us know a little bit more about you. What would you share to introduce yourself?
hmm Well, I grew up in Laie, Hawaii, and then I left Hawaii to attend BYU, Brigham Young University in Provo, and then I graduated in 2016, and I ended up staying there for another 3 years until me and my husband got married. And then we moved to Washington. He brought me here because this is his hometown.
Okay.
So he took me to Washington. And then I convinced him to move to Hawaii to finish his degree in Hawaii because our only option was either to go back to BYU, Idaho, where he was in school at. So I was living in Utah, he was living in Idaho, and we are long distance our whole relationship, basically up until we got married.
Oh, really?
So,
Wow.
so I convinced him to move to Hawaii. I told him, if you get into
Much
BYU
better than
Hawaii,
Idaho.
yes, we were about to have our first baby, and I wanted to be by family, either his
Yeah.
or mine. And so I didn't want to be in Idaho where we didn't have any family at all. So I told
Yeah.
him, if you get into BYU Hawaii, we're moving there because you shouldn't get in there. You don't live there. You have a ton of credits. So you like really should not get into BYU Hawaii. But I applied for him. I did everything. I kind of cheated the system. I used my parents' address in Hawaii, so they thought we were already living there.
Okay,
And
perfect.
and then he got in. And so I was like,
Yay.
perfect, we're moving back home. So we moved back to Laie for 2 years. And the deal was that when he was done with school, we would move back to Washington. So Because our 2 years were up, he finished, and then we came back here, and we've been here for 2 years.
I love it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
My dream is to go live in Hawaii. It is amazing there.
And that's my dream too.
Well, I'm glad you've already
It's
lived
just a,
it for a
it's just
time
an
at least.
ongoing dream.
Right? I don't think we're the only ones. So what does your husband do for work?
History teacher.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
What
and
what grade or
he does high
stage?
school.
Okay, cool.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
History is fascinating. And you work
yeah.
as well?
Yes, I am a substitute teacher, but
Okay,
I
cool.
have done long-term sub jobs. Well, actually just one long-term sub job in a high school math class, which I loved. My major is in athletic training, so not education related at all.
Cool.
But because of where we live, substitute teaching is the only thing I can do here and that
Okay.
I'm qualified for. Our high school does not have an athletic training program, so
Mhm.
even if they did have one, I couldn't be what I even majored in anyway. So this last year, I spent the first semester in a long-term sub job, and then after that, I just kept subbing every single day because where we live, we are really desperate for teachers and desperate for substitutes. And so they have
Mm.
jobs every single day for the most part. But next school year, I already have two long-term jobs lined up for math classes as well at the high school. And so I will basically be working the whole school year next year, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay, awesome. So, in talking to you beforehand about this, you wanted to dive into working moms in the LDS culture. So, let's just get into that a little bit. What brought you to working? How did you make that decision? Because it is tricky, and within our culture, it can be a little bit complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought I would work as a mother, and I think it's because I grew up with a working mom, and my mom, my grandma, her mom, my maternal grandmother also worked a little bit. She was mostly a stay-at-home mom. She had ten kids, but
Wow.
she did work on the side here and there. But
Hmm.
then my paternal grandmother was a teacher as well, and she always worked. And so I just always thought I would work, and I guess I just always wanted to have a backup plan to help provide for my family if I
Hmm.
needed to. I had a really big problem in my head when I was in college thinking that I was going to be the sole provider. I kept having this idea in my head, and I kept having to get out of my head and be like, no, Kaylee, you're going to get married someday, and your husband, his responsibility is to provide for your
Hmm.
family. So you don't actually have to provide, but you can if you want to.
Hmm.
And then when I started dating my husband, so side note, I have actually known my husband my whole life. My grandparents used to live in his hometown. My mom is from Washington.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so we would come up here during the summers to visit my grandparents. And because there's only one little ward here, they were in our ward as
Everybody
well.
knew
And our
everybody.
parents, yes, our parents were friends. And yeah, so when I started dating my husband, we reconnected in 2017, and we eventually got engaged at the end of 2018. So we dated for a year and a half, which was not my choice. My husband was just dragging his feet, and I was like, "Don't you want to marry me? What's going on?" He was dragging his feet about it. He was really set on dating a whole year. So we got engaged, and we had a very short engagement. It was like 2 months long.
Hmm.
But when we were engaged and just like, talking about our future, he really wanted me to be a stay-at-home mom because that's what he grew up with.
Hmm.
And that's what he always learned in the church. And for the most part, like we all learn that. We all learn that we are going to be mothers, and men are learning that like our wives are going to be mothers, and it's really important for them to be at home with your kids, or not just to be at home, but their role is to raise your kids and bring your kids up in Christ.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people mistake that for you have to be home with your kids 24/7. And if
Hmm.
you're not, then you're not going to be able to fulfill that role,
Hmm.
which to me, I believe is untrue because I grew up with a working mom, although she did get to work from home.
Hmm.
So she was an online school teacher, um, which was very unheard of in the 90s and early 2000s. But yeah, she got to work from home. And so she was home with us, but she was working. We weren't able to bother her sometimes. She had to work. And so she was still not with us 24/7, even though she was working from home.
Hmm. I grew up with my mom not working. I think two things. One, now it's so much more common for both to be working. I think just because inflation has been insane, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of for a lot of families, like, it's a necessity, right? We just
Mm-hmm.
need more income.
Yeah.
Um, and secondly, if you are just kind of what you were saying, how you need to be home 24/7 in order to fulfill that role has kind of been this idea, definitely not doctrine, right? But
Mm-hmm.
just this like cultural idea. And I was thinking about my experience with my mom being home, and I know that I have a tendency to just like put off maybe friendships and outings and things because I just am like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, like I need to be here. Just kind of that idea, not even
Mm-hmm.
consciously thinking like I have to do this, but just like subconsciously this self-sacrificing
Mm-hmm.
to the detriment of myself and my family at times, if I'm like not doing well, but just like, no, I have to keep watching the children. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think it's tricky to
Yeah.
find that balance.
Yeah, and it definitely was a slow burn in my decision to go back to work full time. When we were living in Hawaii, I did work part time at an
Mhm.
elementary school, and my mom was able to watch my daughter for like 4 hours a day. My husband was in school, and he was also working too. So I worked part time first, and then when we moved back to Washington, my husband went back to subbing. Before we even moved to Washington, before we had our first baby, I subbed at the school district before. And so when we moved back and my husband was subbing and just talked because he didn't get a teaching job right away, we moved in January, so middle of the school year. So he just subbed for the first semester, and I saw him subbing and I just like missed it so much.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, I want to go back to work. Like it was so fun. Like I want to do that. And we did need the money too because he was subbing and inflation and everything. We were coming straight out of school, paying for all of that, also
Yeah,
living in Hawaii, which is expensive as well. And we had savings, but when we moved, we had to buy like everything.
everything.
We had to restart all over again. So it was just really expensive. And so I wanted to work like maybe once a week. And where we live, we don't live in a place that has a lot of young girls, adult girls who could babysit. And so it was really hard trying to find a babysitter. I had reached out to my mother-in-law and she was very hesitant to help because she believes that, mothers should stay home. We
Mhm.
did have a heart to heart and she did end up helping me only once a week, but once uh one of our YSA moved back home for the spring, she was like, "Oh, now this girl can babysit for you." And I was like, "Yes, she can babysit me. That'll be great. I will hire a babysitter now." You know.
Mhm.
And but that part was really hard, just feeling that older women in the church, and not just from older women, this was something that was really ingrained in their generation to stay at
Mhm.
home, that when I did ask for help, it was not well received. And that was hard. That was tough because I felt really alone. But I had just moved back. I left my parents who were so helpful. My daughter is one of the first grandkids on my side of the family, but on my husband's side, he's the youngest of
Mhm.
six. Well, he's the second youngest of six kids, but his younger sister passed away as a child, so he
Oh,
is basically the youngest.
yeah.
Um, so
There's a
it
bunch
was,
of grandbabies on his
yeah,
side. Yeah.
yeah, and his parents are uh, several years older than my parents.
Mhm.
So it was just a hard situation where I
Yeah.
just I just missed my family so much already, and then
Mm.
having like not not being really supported in something that I wanted to do that I thought would benefit my family was really tough.
Yeah, for sure. It's really hard when you feel a certain way. You know you're on the right path, but it it doesn't necessarily translate to everybody else knowing that you're on the right path too, and it can
Hmm.
be kind of hard to stick it out and trust your
Yeah,
gut. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really
yeah.
hard.
And I really never had the intention of going to work full time. I just wanted to work maybe once a week, twice a week. But again, because we don't have a lot of young girls around, I couldn't really find a babysitter. The only option I really had was to put my kids in daycare full time because the daycare system here, you pay monthly. Like you pay for
Mhm.
the whole month, regardless of if they come every day or not. So the only way I could afford daycare was to put them in and to just go to work every day. So that is what I ended up doing. But like I said, I never actually had the intention of doing that. It wasn't until a teacher had reached out to me who was having a baby, and I had subbed for her before, and she really wanted me to be her long-term sub. And I had prayed about it. Well, first I was just going to say no. I'm like, I don't know how the daycare system really works. And
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know what to even do to even look into daycares. And so I was going to say no at first. But then I took about a month making this decision. Like, I prayed about it and cried about it. Did a lot of thinking, a lot of talking with my husband. And I just kept getting this confirmation to go back to work. So I did that. I told her yes. She This might go off topic a little bit, but she reached out to the principal and he said, okay, great, Kaylee will be your long-term sub. And then he reached out to our HR lady, and she said that I couldn't be her long-term sub until they reached out to all the certificated subs first. So
Oh,
basically
okay.
any of the subs who actually have an education degree, since my
Okay.
background is not in education. And so that was a big bummer and very frustrating because I had already found a daycare. I had already cried about this,
Felt
and
confirmation.
yes, felt
You're
the
like, God, why is
confirmation.
this not lining up?
Yeah. And you know, and once I made the decision, I was like, this will be so great for us financially. We'll have so much more financial freedom. We'll be able to save money, maybe buy a house in the next couple years. And so when the HR woman said no, and that she was going to find somebody else, they kept kind of dragging me along too. They said, you'll know by this time. And I still didn't know. I'd reach out to them and they still wouldn't have an answer. And we're
Mm.
getting closer to the school year. And I really had to make the decision if I was going to put my kids in daycare.
Yeah.
And I told my husband, I just feel like that class is going to need me. I don't know why, because they said I couldn't and they have somebody else, but I just know that they're going to need me somehow. And so I still put my kids in daycare, and I just picked up jobs every day. I just tried to be the first one. We have an app, and so the sub jobs will
Okay.
just go into the app, and I was just on the app constantly, just like picking them up because I couldn't afford daycare unless I
Yeah,
worked
unless
at
you're
least like
working.
yeah, unless I worked at least half the month, and then
Hmm.
but I also wanted to make some money and not just only
Exactly.
pay
Not,
for
yeah.
daycare.
Mm.
Yeah, so I was just picking up jobs, and then about a month into the school year, I think it was, I got a call from the sub coordinator, and she asked me if I could sub for that specific class the next day, like the following day. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I can, but I actually already have a sub job. And she said, well, this could potentially turn into a long-term position. And I was like, what? What happened to that teacher?
Yeah.
And turns out that sub quit after like 2 weeks.
Oh,
Um,
man.
I totally understand why, because the classroom she was in, those were some really tough kids, really tough students. And yeah, so I picked up the job and just kind of jumped in and taught math for
Oh,
four
my
months.
gosh.
And it was a dream come true. I always said if I was ever a teacher, I would want to teach geometry. And I got to teach two geometry classes, two algebra classes. I don't love algebra, but I did it. We made it through. We survived. It was tough.
Kudos. Okay, that's amazing. I love that you just trusted your instincts. And even though, it felt like the doors were closing, that God kept being like, hold on, like, I know that
Mhm.
they're going to need you and that you kept trusting in that. That's the coolest story. So tell us a little bit. I was listening to one of your Instagram stories the other day, and you talked about how mentally, like, this has also been better for you and your family. Speak to us a little bit about that, because going back to what I was saying about sometimes being too self sacrificing, I have noticed that taking breaks from my children is like such a game changer. Going on weekly dates with my husband or whatever it is, it makes the biggest difference and helps me come back as a better mother. So tell us your experience with that.
Yeah, so once I started being gone more from my kids, part of it, I I did feel a little bit of guilt. So when I picked my kids up from daycare and brought them home, I was just so happy to be with them. I was a kinder mother, I was a happier mother, and I just gave them more attention. I felt like personally, I felt when I was staying home, it was so hard to be present. And that's
Yeah.
because of our phones and social media. And even though I tried really hard to be present, it was so hard to not just doom scroll and just look
Hmm.
at my phone or just always be Googling things and looking things up and working on grocery lists and just
Hmm.
everything that we do to keep our household running
Yep.
that we do on our phones. And so even though some of the things that I felt like were good things to do, like, oh, I have to get this list put together, I have to get these groceries ordered, I need to do
Yes.
this, but then also we still get our notifications from Instagram and WhatsApp, Marco Polo, just everything. So it's just
Hmm.
constantly being distracted. And so when I was a stay-at-home mom, I felt like, man, I have just been on my phone all day. Like I'm really just missing out on my kids. What's the difference if I go back to work?
Hmm.
Because at least then I'm being productive and helping financially, whereas at home, kind of just on my phone and maybe cleaning up sometimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I feel terrible because it was just so hard for me to be home and just be happy at home. And a
Hmm.
part of that I think was because my husband is also a coach. And so I wasn't really getting a lot of help at home because he'd be at work all day and then he'd be at football practice.
Hmm.
And he doesn't just coach one sport, he coaches 2 to 3 sports. So
Okay. Wow.
basically, throughout the whole school year, he was gone. So
Hmm.
he coached football this year and he has coached football for the last 2 years and he coached before we moved to Hawaii. And this year was his first year as the head girls varsity basketball coach. And usually he coaches baseball as well, but this year
Wow.
they didn't have enough boys signed up, so he wasn't able to coach baseball this year. But last year he coached baseball, went straight into football and then basketball, and luckily did not have to do baseball this year.
Oh
But
my
I know he missed
goodness.
it.
Yeah. That's so
So
busy.
that that part of it for me is was another reason why I felt like my mental health was so much better because I was
Yeah.
able to go to work, come home. My husband still wasn't home because he had to go straight to football practice or basketball practice. So I was still home with the kids all by myself. But having that break made it so much easier compared to when I'd be at home all day and all
Hmm.
night, not having any help with my kids, and my kids hardly ever seeing my husband, like for maybe like 1 hour a day, like 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes, in the evening.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, that is very busy and very hard. I have 4 little girls and I homeschool. And I always say the pro to homeschooling is that you're with your kids all day, but the con to homeschooling is that you're with your kids all day.
yes, yes. Oh my goodness, you are a saint.
No, I'm not. But but it
Teaching
is
is
what we've
hard.
chosen.
Yes.
It is. It is hard. Very rewarding, as I'm sure you've experienced, like it's
Hmm.
so cool to teach. But yeah, it's a lot to figure out I love what you're saying about being able to work and then come home and dedicate all your time to them and your attention to them, because for me, that is like 100% what I'm trying to figure out, is like
Hmm.
how to set up my day so that my things are taken care of. My things as far as running the home are taken care of. I'm taken care of physically and spiritually. And then I'm able to, pour into my children and be more present because I
Yeah.
agree, it's very easy to just be doing all the things on our phone that we need to do, making all the lists, ordering the groceries, looking up all the like extracurricular things that we're trying to put our children in and
Hmm.
planning vacation. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
So I love that the structure and the break that work has given you and the fulfillment of also being able to bring in extra income for your family and help out and be able to save, and all of that is so positive and wonderful. I think, obviously in this conversation, what we choose for motherhood is just so personal. And
Hmm.
I think that if we could all truly understand that, it would be so helpful. Like I loved hearing your story about, you're trying to decide if you go back to work and you're praying and crying and speaking with your husband, but like we don't see that. We
Hmm.
just see you going back to work. and then people think whatever they want to think, and some would be positive things and maybe some people would think negative things, but it is just so vital to have that close relationship with God so that you can know what is right for your family. I have never felt like I should go back to work, but I have felt like I should start a podcast and I
Mhm.
should do some other side things. And they have really helped me to have a break in a way. I get to come on here and chat with moms and feel connected and learn from other mothers and see how they're doing this task that can be challenging. And I absolutely love it. It has been really beneficial for my mental health. And it's just so neat how God will guide us to the things that are going to benefit us in our motherhood and in our lives. And it's just great.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that because since creating my Instagram account, it's been about 2 months. And this is something that I kept getting a feeling to do for, I think, the last year. I remember told my husband, I should probably ask him about this, but I told my husband several times over the last year, I keep getting a feeling that I need to make an LDS Instagram account and just share about my life as a Latter-day Saint. But I don't
Mhm.
want to.
I know.
I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't like there's so many negative things I thought about, like
Oh
all
my
the
gosh, yeah. Mhm.
anti-exmo people out there. And just like,
And it can
in
be rough.
yeah, and in the Instagram, social media world, you apparently need to like niche down.
Mhm.
And I was like, I just don't want to post about the same thing all the time. That it's
Yeah.
just really hard. And I don't have that much to say about one topic all the time. And I was like,
Yes.
I told him, I keep getting this feeling to do this, but I don't want to do this. And I told him that maybe at least 3 times over the whole year. And it wasn't until I think it was back in the like March, end of February or beginning of March, my friend invited me to go to the temple with her, and so a group of us girls went to the temple, and something in the endowment session stood out to me, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just got this overwhelming feeling that I needed to create this Instagram account. And
Mhm.
so once I left the temple that day, I remember going into the celestial room and praying about that feeling after. And I just told God, okay, I'm going to do this. And yeah, so I did it. I just started just sharing my experiences, and not all of it resonates with people. At first, I was getting a lot of anti-LDS comments,
Mhm.
and that was really frustrating. But I did make it as a missionary tool originally, and so I did want it to reach non-members,
Yeah.
but it was really hard seeing all of that. But eventually, you
Yeah.
just get numb to all those comments, and then it starts reaching people in the church. And then you start getting mean comments from people in the church. And that's where it
Yeah.
got worse for me. I
Yeah,
could,
that's what
I,
threw me for a loop. I was like,
yes,
"What?"
yes, I was like, send all the ex-Mormon anti-LDS
Ah.
comments my way. I can handle that. But once it comes from our own fellow brothers and sisters in our church is when it gets really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I have posted a couple videos about the new garments and same had some just like, people who are just like, you don't actually have to wear garments to get exalted. Like, just don't wear your
Yeah.
garments. And I'm like, that's great. Like that they can
Yeah.
totally think that. And I can also feel my way and that's fine. But I really started like feeling like so sad and hurt when like little grandmas who have like scriptures in their bio are like coming onto my page and being mean to me. And I'm just
Yes.
like, if I was in your ward, you would never say this to me. You would not
Yes.
like walk up to me and just like say rude things about what I'm
Yeah.
choosing to
Yeah,
do.
that is the hardest part is when somebody says something rude in the name of Christ, and then you go back to their bio, because I will be honest, if anybody says anything rude to me, I go check out their Instagram because I
Me
want to know
too.
more about them.
Yeah.
And then to see scripture quotes. or
I love my grandchildren.
anything related to the church in their bio. And I'm like, man, you are not being a good representative of our church by saying
Yeah.
things like this. And then you have this in your bio. Yeah, that's what happened to me yesterday. A woman sent me a negative message, and I went to her bio, and her bio name was Strive to Be, and I was shocked.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so disheartening. I really wish I I've been saying this to my husband a lot over the last year. It's like the older I get, the less I know. And I think it's actually a really good thing. It's just like the older I get, the more I'm seeing other people's perspectives and other people's experiences. And I'm just like, wow, I know nothing. I had it in my head that like, this is how things should go. This is how my life should go. This is how people should act or whatever. But you
Hmm.
learn a little bit more and you go through some hard things and you just realize that like everybody really is trying to do their best and
Yeah.
trying to be good people. And the internet is just like a weird, wild place. And I don't know why people
Yeah.
get on there and think that they can just say whatever they want or think that like the creator isn't going to see the message
Hmm.
or that like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a few that have like just made me so annoyed. I'm just like,
But then
just hurt, you know?
you want to be a good representative of Christ. So instead of like being rude back, you're like trying to be loving and
Yeah, you're trying to
Christ-like,
just
and
be
you're like,
like,
this is so unfair.
yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I really truly don't want to like, just say mean things back or put negativity out into the internet because the
Hmm.
internet is so polarizing. And, I think that's why like all these comments um are just crazy. It's crazy to see like that,
Yeah.
one person's feeling one way and one person's feeling exactly the opposite. And
Yeah.
it just is fascinating to sit there and
Yeah.
watch it all happen.
Yeah. It is really eye-opening to see different perspectives from people from the church because it's a worldwide church, and social media, that's what's so great about social media. We can see all the perspectives from so many people in the church and not just what we believe the church to
Mhm.
be.
Yeah.
I think some people forget that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and culturally, there definitely are some issues culturally inside the church, and I love your page and just seeing even just this conversation talking about women working in the church. Obviously, that was something that was kind of preached that we shouldn't be working, and so I just love hearing from other women and seeing their perspectives and their experiences and noticing that of course you're working, but you can still be as close to God as I am, right? This is not like a holier than thou type
Yeah.
situation. And that there's so many choices that all of us are making all the time. And our
Hmm.
lives are going to look so different inside and outside of our motherhood.
Yeah. And like our role as mothers is to rear up our children in Christ. And basically we're the ones that are teaching them about Christ. And we can still do that whether we work or stay home. We can
100%.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like you said, I think you bring up such a valid point for any mothers who maybe feel like they should go back to work or need to go back to work but are feeling that guilt. Like if you look at the hours in a day, and how you could literally be spending just as much time teaching your child about Christ as I am,
Hmm.
because I'm not just giving my child 100% of my attention all day long,
Hmm.
even though I'm at home with him, just like we've
Yeah.
discussed. There's so many things that have to happen, and there's so many things that can be outsourced, like housework um, and childcare, obviously, for part of the time. And there's just so many ways to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I would love to see us as mothers be less judgmental, less quick to, look down on other mothers and
Yeah.
accept mothers that are making different choices than us.
Yeah. And I think in today's generation, there really is a lot more support among women. Like being a girl's girl is really a thing that girls want or women want to be now.
Mhm.
Um, I do feel like a lot of stuff from the older generations is what's holding us back
Mhm.
negatively. And I love my elders,
Yeah.
but they do think a lot differently than how we think now.
Yeah, it is really
Hmm.
fascinating to try and navigate. And the new garments, I feel like, is a perfect representation
Hmm.
of like just completely different thoughts as far as this big change goes. Like
Hmm.
when I heard about the new garments, I was really excited because we think about this being a worldwide church, and I served a mission in Chile, and I first thing that came to my mind was like, we are asking people to make such drastic changes when they join the church, right? We're asking
Hmm.
them to obey the law of chastity and the word of wisdom. And just like those two things alone are major.
Hmm.
And like they are so beneficial. Obviously, I believe in both of those things wholeheartedly. And then we're asking them to come to church every week, and like we're flipping their lives completely upside down.
Yeah.
And it's for the better, and it's
Hmm.
worth it, right? Like any
Yeah.
sacrifice we make, I truly believe is worth it. But like let's let go of some of the things that maybe don't matter as much. Like
Hmm.
if our shoulders are showing or not. Like maybe that really was just a cultural thing, and maybe
Hmm.
God didn't care, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it feels like God is just trying to really focus on the things that matter most and make
Hmm.
the gospel more accessible and attainable for everybody across the globe.
Hmm.
And then it's interesting to contrast that with, different experiences that the older generation or ex-Mormons have had. And, they're just
A lot of
crazy.
resentment.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of joy and excitement with the new garments, but a lot of resentment too. And yeah, there's just a lot of feelings
Yeah, which is
everywhere.
fine. Like
Yeah.
that's so valid. And,
Hmm.
I personally never had I grew up in a home where my mom was very particular about modesty, and like we never showed our shoulders. Um but I never thought like my shoulders were bad, or like
Hmm.
I didn't
Yeah.
never had any major feelings about it. And
Yeah.
nor did I have any major feelings about wearing my garments. Like I just thought it was fine and never thought
Hmm.
twice. But then when the change happened, it was like, oh, this is fun, like new
Yeah.
fashion
Yeah. This is going to be
options.
great.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
fun. But I totally get that that isn't everybody's experience, and that
Yeah.
some people, did feel really shamed or
Yeah.
guilty. And
Yeah. And when I found out about the garments, I felt like this was very healing because, like you, I also grew up with parents who were very particular about my clothing. I wasn't allowed to wear tank tops. I wasn't really even allowed to wear tank tops in our house. My mom didn't care as much, but
yeah,
I remember like walking out in like a spaghetti strap and my dad out of my bedroom, and my dad would be like, "Go back inside and put a shirt on."
yeah.
So just very particular, um, which was it was tough for me because I grew up in Hawaii where it's so hot and humid. And I
Mm-hmm.
had friends in the church. Even one of my best friends, her dad was in our stake presidency and she would wear tank tops. So I knew the way I was being told to dress had nothing to do with the church, really. I
Mm-hmm.
truly did not believe that, but I
Interesting.
dressed the way I was told to dress because I was afraid, and it was basically a rule.
Yeah,
And I had to respect my parents.
yeah.
But it was tough because, like I said, growing up in Hawaii where it's so hot, like I remember being embarrassed about like sweat stains under my armpits on my shirts at school. Like,
Yeah.
so I just feel like it is very healing. Especially, I remember going to stake dances and there being a dress code. And if your skirts are not long enough, then you're being sent home. If your sleeves are not long enough, you're being sent home. If you don't have a tie on, you're being sent home. Or at
Mm-hmm.
girls' camp, if your sleeves aren't long enough or your shorts aren't long enough, you're getting marked with a permanent marker at girls'
Yeah.
camp.
Yeah. Or
And
EI and
yes, and so, which in my opinion is so toxic, but so now like this announcement, I just think it is so healing, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't remember the exact year when they changed the for strength of youth. I think it was in 2022,
yeah,
I think.
it's been a while ago now.
Yeah. I think it was 2022 or end of 2021, somewhere like that, where they made the change in the for Strength of Youth, where they specifically did not say do's and don'ts about modesty and what to wear. And
Hmm.
then now, 3 years later, we're getting a new garment.
Yeah.
I think it was all aligned.
Yep. I agree.
And yeah. And I love the For Strength of Youth, but it's also called the For Strength of Youth. So it was really frustrating to me that adults were still like aligning their lives with the For Strength of Youth because we're not youth anymore.
Hmm.
And we are like, when we are youth, we are constantly being bombarded with other people's thoughts and opinions about the church. Because that's what adults are supposed to do. They're supposed to rear us up in the church and guide us in the church. But once we're not youth anymore, and even when we are youth, we have the ability to discern for ourselves and make our own decisions. And I feel like doing that creates confidence in our testimonies of the church and Jesus Christ and Joseph Smith and the restored gospel. I just think that I'm just so happy that this For Strength of Youth was changed, and it's all
Hmm.
about your relationship with God now.
Yeah, I love that they have just pushed so much for like our youth and their connection with God, and just,
Mm-hmm.
us as adults facilitating that relationship and emphasizing the importance of that relationship. And then, literally almost in all of the things, it just says, like, this is where the church stands on, whatever topic it is. And it just says, as far as like dress and grooming and tattoos and earrings and modesty, it just says, go to the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and your parents and your bishop can help you decide what's right for you. And yeah, I think it's over the years is just going to help so much with the judgment of each other, and the black and white thinking of this is
Mm-hmm.
how LDS person looks, and you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just think it'll be so awesome. It is
Yeah.
so awesome already, but will continue to be more awesome. So tell us, you also mentioned about, feeling guilty about going back to work. Tell us, let's say, your advice for someone who has to go back to work, wants to go back to work. What are you going to tell them?
Um, I would tell them if they're unsure, obviously first to pray about it. Sometimes we still are confused even after we pray about it. But my advice would be to just do it. Just do it. You can put your kids in daycare and you can also take your kids out of daycare. You can go back to
Love
work
that.
and you can stop going back to work. So I would just recommend giving it a try and seeing how it works for you. And if it doesn't work out, then you don't have to keep doing it.
Yeah, I love that. That's
Yeah.
such great advice. I think that it's so easy to just get caught up in these big decisions that do affect, our families, and just think like, you know, if I'm doing this, I have to do it and I can't undo it. So that is
Hmm.
such good advice and such a great reminder that a lot of decisions can be reversed.
Yeah, I used to think that I couldn't be a quitter,
Mhm.
but we can quit. We can quit
Yes.
things.
Yes. I love that. Quit things if you need to quit things. It's so true. And like, whatever social shame or repercussions come from that, like, let it be. Like, just
Hmm.
focus on your relationship with you and God and your family. And when you put all those things first, it really doesn't matter what other people may think or say.
Yeah.
Love that. Any other advice that you would give moms?
As a mom, if you do go back to work and then you are still struggling with how to give attention to your kids after work, because a lot of the times, the first like several months I was working, I'd go to work, come home, and then start making dinner every
Hmm.
single day. And sometimes it would take me like 30 minutes, sometimes it would take me 2 hours, depending on what I was making.
Yep.
But eventually you'll get into a routine and you'll find out what works best for you. Something that works for me that I wish I had started doing as a stay-at-home mom, because I felt like I could have given a lot more attention to my kids, was meal prepping. And specifically, I do freeze ahead crock pot meals that I usually don't have to do any cook prep for them. So they're
Okay, cool.
basically just like bag and then dump into the crock pot, and which has been so nice because I can just put in the crock pot before I leave for work, and I come home and it's basically done. Sometimes there are a couple other things I need to do, like boil some pasta and stuff like that, but things that don't take very long. And during that time, instead of cooking, I can play with my kids
I
and spend
love
time with
that.
them.
That is
So
such a
yeah,
good
that's
tip.
just a little tip.
I love that. I have a neighbor friend and she quit working. I don't know, it's maybe been 8 months ago or something. And I was chatting with her the other day, just asking, how the transition has been. And she said that the thing that has surprised her most is that, like, she thought that she'd have, all this time and be able to keep up on her house and all the things. But she's like, I think I actually get less done now that I'm home because there's not the structure. There's not like,
Yes.
you have to get things done within a certain
Mm-hmm.
amount of time. And
Yeah.
so I love that. Just makes you a better planner and having to
Mm-hmm.
get things set up
Yeah,
just
it's
so.
so that is so
Mhm.
true because that has made manifest in my life. Um, I am much better at keeping up with my house, except for once I get to Thursdays, it just all, Thursdays are hard because and it's because on Thursdays I'm like, well, tomorrow's Friday, so it's gonna be the weekend, so I don't have to clean
Exactly.
today. Um, and so yeah, that being said, I'm really nervous for summer break. I actually just finished my last day of work on Friday. And so now I'm going to be home with my two younger kids because my oldest is in preschool and she'll be finishing out the school year with my husband who's also working. And so I'm going to be home with my two youngest and I'm really nervous about it. It's been a little while since I've been home with them. So
Yes.
I'm just hoping that we can get into a good routine, keeping up with the house and with meals and just doing fun stuff. It's also, I don't know if other people feel this way, but when I was a stay-at-home mom and even now as a working mom, when my husband's home with me, my whole routine goes out of whack. Like it
Yeah.
is so hard because my husband doesn't really have a routine at home because he's never had to have that. His
Yeah.
role is to work and at home he just helps me. And so I'm the one that, makes the decisions in our house. And so when I see him like just chilling out on the couch, I want to chill out on the couch too. And so when
Yeah.
he's home, like it is so hard to be productive sometimes.
Yes, I totally feel that as well. It's like, "All right, you're home, let's party."
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. So tell us how you're making time for God and in all the busyness of your schedule.
Yeah. So usually I get up early to work out before school starts and before I have to like get ready for work. And
Oh, that's awesome. What time do you
uh
have to get up to make that happen?
5 a.m. I
Oh,
have
man.
been struggling at
That's
it
awesome.
lately since
Mm.
daylight savings. Daylight savings
Mm,
has ruined my routine.
it
But
always does.
yes, but in January, when it was cold and freezing, somehow I was able to get up at 5 a.m. And yeah, I was
That's
able to do it.
amazing.
But with spring, it's been so hard, which it should be earlier because the sun is coming up earlier. I don't know. I still feel like I'm trying to get back into my routine, but I wake up early to go work out, and so while I'm working out, I'll often listen to like a general conference talk, or
Yeah,
sometimes I'll listen to the scriptures, but I find that listening to conference talks are more beneficial for me while I'm working out. It's harder for me to listen to the
yeah,
scriptures while
yeah, I
I'm
agree.
working out. But also when I'm just subbing and not long-term subbing, so when I don't actually have to teach a class, and I mainly only sub at the high school level,
Mhm,
they are much more self-directed
mhm,
students. And so I'm able to just kind of like sit back and just monitor. And so I'm able to like do come follow me on my laptop or something like that.
mhm.
So a lot of times it's just listening to something or finding some sort of free moment to do a little bit. Even at night, like sometimes I'll read like a few verses from the scriptures.
Mhm.
And so it's never ever a big, huge study session.
Yeah.
It's always
No,
little bits and pieces here and there.
yeah, I love that. I've talked to moms doing all sorts of things and with kids in all sorts of stages, and, um, I would say that's what it boils down to is just taking a few minutes here and there, throw up a prayer, listen to
Mhm.
something. It's just continually choosing to turn back to God and turn our hearts to him and keep our hearts
Mhm.
soft. And I think it's really powerful that we can have such a close relationship with him despite maybe not putting in like hours and hours. Like I think
Mhm.
of, amazing women who are like scriptorians, or men and women who get to be seminary teachers, people whose jobs are like inside the church, and how many
Mhm.
hours they get to study. And for me, I served my mission, and that was such a neat time to just be so dedicated to that and be having
Mhm.
such like powerful experiences. And it's so neat that even though I'm putting in way less time, I can still have really powerful experiences with God,
Mhm.
and he can still be such a huge part of my life and my day-to-day life, just simply by throwing up a little prayer and just being
Yeah.
like, I need you, I need help, or what should I do
Yeah.
here? What should I say here?
Yeah. Something else that I recently started doing, and this is going back to garments. I wouldn't say I have always struggled with wearing garments. Like it is just something like after I got endowed, I wore my garments, but I also didn't think that if I wasn't wearing my garments that it was that big of a deal. And especially while living in Hawaii, it actually was really hard for me to wear my garments there because it's so hot and humid.
Yeah.
And every time, so I got endowed in Hawaii, I lived there for that summer, and then I decided to move back to Utah. And part of the reason why I was excited was so I could wear my garments more regularly,
Mm.
because I was like surfing all the time. And then
Yeah.
and when I was working as a theater dancer at the Polynesian Cultural Center. So I
Oh,
obviously
cool.
can't wear my garments doing that. So right after I got endowed, I really wasn't wearing my garments all that much just because of my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited to move back in 2016, back to Utah and be able to wear them more regularly. But still, I was just wearing them, like going through the motions kind of thing. And then,
Yeah.
got married, moved back to Hawaii, struggled with it again because it's so hot. And I was just like, what's the big deal? I don't have to wear my garments every single day to have a testimony in Jesus Christ, to love Jesus Christ. I just really was like, I don't have to do this. I
Hmm.
can when I want to, but it's not a big deal if I'm not. And even moving back, I still back to Washington, like we have AC, it's easier to wear garments. But if I ever went out in the summertime, I did not want to wear them. It's so hot.
Hmm.
And I still was like, it's not a big deal until recently. So I went to Hawaii for Christmas, packed 3 pairs of garments, which was just too much actually. I was there for a month. I packed 3 pairs of garments and 10 pairs of regular underwear. I was like, I am not going to be wearing those in Hawaii. It is just impossible for me to do
Yeah.
that. And then I came back in January back home, and I was just like planning, just thinking about how I wanted this year to be. And I don't set goals, I set mottos. And
Hmm.
so my
Love that.
motto this year was I can do hard things.
Hmm.
That it's not actually related to me talking about garments right now, but I did want to like come closer to Christ.
Hmm.
And one thing about that was wearing my garments intentionally. And that is where it really shifted for me. Because before I was just wearing them because that's what we're instructed to do. We're instructed to wear them. And I was just putting them on. But once I
Hmm.
started putting them on intentionally, being reminded, and like every time putting them on, thinking about the
Hmm.
covenants I've made in the temple, it was like a night and day switch. Whenever I did that in the morning or at night when I put them on after a shower, I'm a nighttime shower. Growing up in Hawaii, you shower at night, not in the
That makes
morning.
sense.
Sometimes both
Sometimes
actually.
both. Yeah.
But yeah, just putting them on intentionally while remembering my covenants, it just helped me to just naturally be reminded of Christ all day long. Like I was just always thinking about him whenever I did that intentionally.
That seriously is so beautiful. I love that. I would say I'm similar in the sense that like I've always, since being endowed, I've always worn my garments, and I haven't really like felt much resentment towards them. Or a lot of people have a lot of experiences with the garment, and I would say that mine has been fairly neutral. I just have worn my garment and been fine with my garment, but also have not made it super intentional. Now the wording in the initiatory has changed, and it talks about how they are a representation of Christ. But before it changed, I had learned, I can't even remember where, but somewhere I was reading, and it just talked about how you're literally putting on Christ when you put on your garments. And um, that switch, same as you were saying, just has made such a big difference. Just thinking, I'm putting on Christ. Christ is with me. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling upon his power and accepting his power when I put these on every day. And
Mm-hmm.
just how just enriching and beautiful that is, like what a cool thing that we have a physical, tangible reminder every day of our Savior that we get to put on. And it's so neat. And I understand that, that isn't everybody's experience, and that garments can be hard to wear, and that is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it
Yeah,
also can
yeah,
be beautiful.
and I definitely think once you make that mindset switch, it makes wearing our garments so much more beautiful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I often think about just how good God is and how he loves us so much, and everything he asks us to do is for us. He's
Hmm.
not giving us these garments to just like make us miserable, right? Or
Hmm.
like,
Yeah,
wear this because I'm God and I need you to wear this,
yeah,
like it
yeah.
literally is for us. And I think our
Hmm.
whole journey here in life is um, learning how to do the things that he's asking us to do in the way that they're supposed to be done, so that they are beneficial for us, right? Like,
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
just going to the temple because you're just checking it off the list, or reading your scriptures because you're checking it off the list and you're just kind of rushing through it or whatever, but actually allowing those things to like enter into your soul and
Hmm.
create a relationship with God. And easier said than done, and definitely like an ebb and a flow situation.
Yes.
I just posted a reel this week that like I went to the temple and I went in feeling pretty down, and I came out and I was still feeling pretty down. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And I just wanted to shed some light on that, because so often, we're seeing reels of like, oh, I went to the temple and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And so often
Yeah.
it is, but sometimes it's
Yeah.
also not.
Yeah. Yeah. There have been times I like, don't feel great and going to the temple. And then in the temple, I feel like so good and peaceful. And then as soon as I walk out, I'm like, now I'm back in the dumps again.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, honestly, for me, sometimes I go into the temple and I'm just like,
Down the whole time.
yeah, I'm just like down, or like I'm choosing to just like be annoyed with the people in there, or like the way that something
Yeah.
is done, or I'm feeling impatient, or, like, I don't know, that's probably not good to admit, but but I'm definitely not perfect. And as much
Hmm.
as I love the gospel, um, like, we're just not robots. Do you have a favorite scripture or quote, something that has gotten you through?
Yeah, I will have to look it up real quick because
Yeah,
I don't
take your
want to
time.
mess it up. I was thinking about it before. It's by
Yeah, I
Elder
think.
Packer. Yeah.
Mhm.
True doctrine understood changes attitudes and behavior. The study of the doctrines of the gospel will improve behavior quicker than a study of behavior will improve behavior. That is why we stress so forcefully the study of the doctrines of the gospel. And I've always loved that. So, fun fact, have you heard of Hank Smith?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I was in his first ever Book of Mormon class at BYU.
Cool.
Me and my sister took a chance on him because we wanted to take a class together, and that was the only time that worked with the professor, and he had no ratings. Zero
Okay.
ratings on Rate My Professor, like
Right.
nothing at all. But that was the only thing that worked. And so we did it. We took a chance on him, Henry Hank Smith, and that was one of the main things that he shared in our classes. And I wish I could have taken all of my religion classes from him. I took Book of Mormon 1 and Book of Mormon 2 from him. And then he moved to St. George because his wife was having twins. Then he moved back, but then I was pretty much done with all of my religion credits that he was still teaching. But
Uh-huh.
my sister did her master's and PhD at BYU, so she just kept taking his religion classes just for fun.
Cool.
But yeah, I just love Brother Smith so much. But yeah, so
That's
that
awesome.
was a quote from one of his lessons, and I have just always loved that.
Yeah. It is
Mhm.
so powerful to know that, like, drawing ourselves closer to the Savior can have such a major impact on our lives and our choices and how we feel, because there's so much information out there, and there's therapists and life coaches, and everybody is selling courses on
Mhm.
Instagram, and like there's so many resources, and it's amazing and beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's also so powerful to draw yourself close to God, and then he leads you to the resources that you need, of
Mhm.
those things, rather than you just kind of floundering out there and like, oh, I'll take this
Yeah.
one and this one, and
Yes.
like,
Mhm.
but it's so neat that as we draw ourselves closer to Christ, that he can change our hearts and he can change our desires and our feelings and help direct us to the resources that we need. Well, anything else you'd like to add to end our conversation?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I will, you don't have to share this on the podcast, but I do kind of want to share an experience with you that I had today.
I'd love
Um,
to hear it.
so the last 2 Sundays, I've been wearing my new garments with dresses I can wear with my new garments, and I live in a
Yes.
super, very conservative farm town with a lot of older women, not women, but like older people in my ward. I have
Yeah.
like, there's like 5 of us women. Actually, there's five, six, seven, like 7 or 8 of us that are in our 20s and 30s.
Okay.
And so not very many of us.
Yeah.
And like we are forced to be friends, which is so great because I love everybody and it's just like we have to be friends. We have no choice. But a lot of older, very conservative people in my ward, and a lot of them, I don't even know if they know that there's a new garment. Who knows?
I
I'm not
know.
sure.
Yeah.
And I wore my dress last week. Nobody said anything. I didn't think anybody would even say anything. I would love to know what they thought in their heads, but no one said anything except for my bishop, who is my father-in-law. So
Okay.
he said, "Oh, I'm guessing you got the new garment." That's what he said to me, and that was it. And I was like, I did. You're right, Father. Um, but then today I wore a dress again, and then I realized it was like fast and testimony meeting, and I was not planning on going up there. I was not ready to be at the pulpit with my shoulders exposed. I
Yeah.
was just not ready for that.
Yeah.
And but I just had this big prompting to go up and share my testimony of Jesus Christ. And it was because sometimes testimony meetings can get out of hand. If you've ever been in any of those testimony meetings. So that's kind of what happened today. And we have a visiting young woman, and she is so sweet, and she is beautiful and vulnerable, and was very vulnerable up there on the stand today. And I just kept getting this impression to go up there and to go up there. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not ready for this. That is not my plan. And but then she just kept talking, and she spoke for maybe like 20, almost, yeah, 20 minutes about. She was up there for a long time. And so finally I was like, okay, fine, I'll just go up there. And normally if someone's up there, you wait until they finish.
Yeah.
But the spirit just told me, go now. And so I just went up there. And as soon as I started walking up, then she started ending her testimony. And then I was able to just give a 30-second testimony of Jesus Christ. And then I came
Yeah.
down, and when I first got up there, I was like, man, everyone's probably thinking like, Kaylee, sit down. Like this has gone, long enough. Or like, she's probably going to talk about garments or something like that.
Yeah.
But, and so it was just such an interesting experience. And after, I didn't expect anybody to come up to me, say anything, didn't really think it was a big deal. I just wanted that young woman to feel comfortable after she had just like laid out her whole soul. Um,
Oh.
and a lot
She
of people
probably
came
just like
up.
needed someone to like help her end it or something, you know? You
Yeah.
know how like she was just like going, she like needed to be like, "Oh, there's my out. I don't have
Yeah,
to fill
yeah.
up this
I
whole
don't know.
meeting."
I don't know how to end.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, and then so many people just like came up and told me that they appreciated me going up and that I did it in the right way. And so that was very kind of everybody, because I was like, man, I'm up here with my shoulders exposed, and all these old people are probably like wondering certain things about me, but
Yeah.
everybody just came up and thanked me. And so it was a beautiful experience. And I didn't really realize like I had the prompting, but everybody else kept saying that was inspired. Thank you for going up.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, it was.
It
And I
was
didn't,
inspired.
yeah, because I felt it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
So,
so neat.
so yeah.
Yeah, last week in Relief Society, I was just wearing my other garment, but somehow I was talking to one of the ladies who knows that I have the new garments, and we were just chatting about them. And then there was another sister in between us who's quite old. I don't know how old she would be, probably at least in her 70s. And she had no idea that the garments were coming out. And um it she was like, "Oh, wow, interesting." And she was like, "I remember when the garments were, down to our wrists and our ankles." And, she was just so cute of just like, "Oh, like that makes sense. The garment
Yeah.
changes,
It changes. Yeah. Yeah, it changes. We believe in a living gospel and a living God, and we all live, we all change and evolve, and God changes what he wants from us whenever he
Yeah.
wants to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. In the Come Follow Him podcast, Hank or John, I don't remember which one, but they were
Mhm.
talking about how important it is to remember that like the gospel is true and living. I loved that. Just that like they were talking about how people get up and bear their testimony and they'll say, "I know this church is true." And they were saying like, I wish that more people would get up and say, "I know this church is true and living. This is the true and living gospel, that it is
Mhm.
moving forward and it is progression." And they talk all the time about how everything hasn't been revealed yet and we're still receiving revelations, and it's so neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have had, even before this lady told me that she didn't know the new garments were coming out, I have thought multiple times, like, I wonder if any of these older people even have any
Yeah.
idea what's going on.
Yeah.
For like Instagram and our generation, it's like all the talk, but
Mhm.
I think that a lot of people have no idea.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. It has definitely been interesting. I I wore this today, but I didn't go to my ward. I have a little girl that's sick, and so I just went to like the other random ward in our building, and then my
Oh,
husband
okay.
went to our ward. But then there was one other Sunday that I wore just a sleeveless dress, and I was just like, this feels uncomfy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was uncomfortable, but also healing at the same time. Like
Yeah.
I remember being a youth and thinking like it is not okay to show your shoulders in the chapel or in the church building, and going to youth activities with boys, with the young men wearing like basketball jerseys, like, and just thinking that's not fair.
Yeah. This doesn't make sense. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so just a lot of healing has come
Yeah.
from the new garment, that's for sure.
Yeah. How did you get yours?
So I have a friend that I met who is from Thailand and moved back to Thailand in January, December. That I met. She went to BYU Hawaii. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, I reconnected with her in Hawaii right before she moved back, and yeah, it just like worked out.
I love it. Do you have all the styles?
Yes, I do. I have one slip dress, one slip, and then one medium and one small garment top. I wish I had gotten a large though, just to see.
Yeah.
But I do think medium is my size. I think it fits me the best.
Do you like the half slip? I haven't tried that one. What's your review on it?
I'm not sure if it was just because of the material of my skirt wearing it, but it like it rides up.
Yeah.
It just does. And so that's another thing to me where I know that the symbols on it are symbolic. So symbols are symbolic. They're not meant to actually work, you know, the knee mark. A lot of ex-Mormon people, or one specifically, an
Or the
ex-Mormon,
grandmas
yeah, are
are
very
like, this has
concerned.
to be on your knee.
Yes, this has to touch your knee. But guess what? With a slip
Mm.
garment and like with a slip skirt and slip dress, they both ride up. Sometimes they go up past my butt. So I
Yeah.
know this does not have to touch my knee. This is by the knee mark. This is, to symbolize,
Yeah.
what we will do when Christ comes again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and like to have it literally hit like my knee. I mean, I don't even know what size I would have to get to have just like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, this
Like,
wouldn't work.
yeah. Yeah. And our bodies are all so different. Like, it's just not possible for everybody to get garments so they touch your knee. It's just not possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is the half slip the same fabric as the full slip?
Yes, I think so.
Nice. Yeah, that one is incredibly thin. Was
Yeah.
shocked at how thin it is.
Yeah. It's
It's
also
awesome.
interesting that how high it comes up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I so somebody had commented saying that their dad works like where they're manufactured and their mom got to like try them out, and so the church is aware of how high it comes up and they are maybe making changes. But I just think, don't they test these before they release them? You know?
Hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe that's how they wanted them to be actually.
Yeah, it does seem odd that like there's such a major difference between it and the tank top.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Because it like I was most excited for the slip dress. I
Hmm.
was like, this is gonna be great, especially when I'm on my period,
Yeah.
but it's actually really hard to wear.
Yeah, you can only wear dresses with it that like literally go up to your neck pretty much.
Yeah,
And and it does make sense that they release them in other countries first to kind of see how those people liked them.
yeah.
But I wonder how people in other countries are when it comes to asking for something different. Or if they're just like, oh, this is what I get, like I get what I get and I don't throw a fit.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the United States, I feel like we are more like, no, this is not what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny. I had somebody comment on one of mine saying that the stretch cotton came out here first and didn't come out in
Mhm.
other countries till later.
Yeah,
And I don't know how to verify that if that's true, but
yeah,
it sounds true and it
yeah,
sounds fine to me. But it
yeah,
seems like, oh, like that makes sense. Like, I mean, the whole thing as far as like it coming out in different countries and stuff makes perfect sense to me. Like, of
yeah,
course it would have to like kind of be staggered or
yeah,
I
yeah,
think they probably recognize that this was a major change and that a lot of people would want them.
yeah,
And that the demand would be really high.
yeah. It is very high. So
So
I'm
funny.
actually like worried, or I'm not super worried, but I just have this feeling. I'm like, man, when they do get released in the fall, like I wonder if they're just going to be sold out and they're actually going to be hard to get.
Oh, for sure. I think it's gonna be, like, nearly impossible, like,
Yeah,
especially here in Utah.
yeah,
Um, I live in St. George, so maybe it would be a little bit better, like, at our distribution center than Provo, but, like, even our stretch cotton, um, in the smaller size is, like, almost never there.
hmm,
So,
yeah,
like, it's never gonna be
yeah.
there.
We have we live an hour away from like everything. So like the temples are all an hour away, and our distribution center, one of them, or our main one, is under construction. So they're kind of like in the bishop's storehouse in like this little like closet, basically.
Oh,
This
funny.
this big closet actually. And and they don't have like all of the styles anymore, and they're not planning to be open until like November. And I think that is why they're coming out in the fall, because we don't need them in the fall, winter months. So it'll give the United States some time to be able to get them to everybody. Like everybody will
Before
have
the
a chance to
summer.
get them before summer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but it's a good point because so many people probably wouldn't have been able to get them at this summer anyway.
Yeah. At first, I was really bugged by it. I was like, why are they going to release them in the fall? But now I'm like, no, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, like, staggered everywhere. Maybe Europe has it now, but Europe didn't have it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are also thinking that everyone else got it
Hmm.
besides us, but,
Yeah.
like, Mexico didn't have it for a long time. I don't
Hmm.
know if they had it I think theirs was supposed to be spring, but, like, Europe didn't have it, like, a month ago.
I know at least, I think Ireland is getting them in June, I think. I only know
Okay,
that
cool.
because my aunt is going to Ireland and I told her, hey, you should get some
Yeah,
because,
get yourself some.
yeah, they're
I
supposed to
love that.
have them.
Oh,
He is getting them in July. And
I got mine from Africa because I have a nephew that, he married a lady from South Africa. They were there for like a month. And I happened to text him and be like, hey, get me some garments if you can. And
Yeah.
he was like, we're going to the temple today. So I'll see if they happen to have your size, but everything
Yeah.
has been sold out,
Mhm.
But he happened to be able to grab me like 3 tops and the slip dress
Uh-huh.
and also the whole idea of like, you're an influencer. And so the
Yeah.
church is giving them to you. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
me and my 1,000 followers.
I
The
know.
church is like, she needs this.
That's exactly how I felt, like, in the comments being like, "How are influencers getting these?" I'm like, "I'm not even an influencer,
I
I know."
know. And like, I'm like, you're seeing the influencers do it, but like, I know several people who aren't influencers who
Yeah,
have these. Like,
yeah,
everybody who just happens to have a connection is getting them. And obviously, we're seeing the influencers talk about it because they're the ones showing their lives online.
yeah, my aunt, she lives in Arizona, but she was actually in Thailand a few months ago, and she went to the distribution center and got some. They didn't have very many, and she told the worker, like, she's like, "I feel bad getting these because there's not very much," and the worker was like, "No, buy them. It's not a big deal. Buy them."
I love that. I have one video where like I was just showing the garment, like it was like barely poking out like this. And I was
Mhm,
just showing that like this is a very regular, like, because I've been very surprised how much doesn't work with the garment.
mhm, yeah,
And, like before I was getting it, I knew I was getting them. And I started buying some tank tops that just like looked like they had thicker straps and thought, for sure they would work. And then started trying them on and like was just very surprised how much didn't work.
yeah,
And, um, I wanted to portray that because I was kind of like disappointed when I got them. I was just like, oh, this is a bummer. You actually can't wear tank
yeah,
tops,
yeah,
like
and
it's
that's
very
how
few.
I felt too, and, in hindsight, at first, I feel like I was really disappointed about how, bigger sizes their straps get bigger,
Yeah.
and, but in hindsight now, I'm like, I think even the smaller sizes, you have a hard time finding tops to work with them.
Yeah.
And so I feel a little bit like maybe like I was disappointed too soon, or because I had made a reel about it. I put
Yeah.
something out there too soon, but I truly was very disappointed.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I think all sizes, no matter what, will have not as easy as a time finding tops to wear with them as we thought we would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I just have this one reel where I was like just showing that like this is like your very classic like sports like tank top. It's cut in just like slightly more than this one. And the garment pokes out like half an inch or whatever. I think that I was disappointed at how much we couldn't wear and wanted other people to see that.
And I think that's something that people forget is that the markings are what's sacred. What we learn in the temple about them is what's sacred. What we're taught to only talk about in the temple about the markings are sacred. But seeing a little bit of hemline is, in my opinion, is not a big deal.
Yeah.
It happens even with the regular garments. Like I think the reason for the big change in these garments is because a lot of women didn't like that if they lifted up their arms, you could see it by their armpit. And but people do see that. Like I wear
Yeah.
shirts
That's never
that go
bothered
lower,
me.
and I have never been bothered by it. I've never been bothered if other people saw that, if I'd
Yeah.
seen that from other people. What bothered me about it though is that my garments don't stay white all the time, so they look a little dingy. And so I
Yeah.
don't like people seeing that part because it's not like it's kind of yucky. But
Yeah.
other than that, that's the only reason why I don't want people seeing that part.
Yeah.
And so people, I don't know, I just feel like people project how they um do things onto other people, and we don't need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be really hard not to. I know that like in the past I've definitely had like very black and white thinking, as like a teenager. This is how you do things, and if you're
Hmm.
not doing it like this, then it's wrong.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's interesting trying to just recognize that everybody's coming from such different places and
yeah.
having their own experiences. Kaylee, thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for this candid conversation, sharing your heart about your experience. I absolutely love hearing from women in all different walks of life and how the gospel is bringing joy and being a blessing in your life. So thank you for chatting about all the things. And listeners, thanks for being here. I am cheering you on. Remember, you can always text and ask questions, leave comments, and don't forget to leave us a review if you are loving the Mothering with Jesus podcast. Thank you.